Hi guys, welcome to Brandix Reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about Wonder Woman. Movie's just come out over here in the UK. Today is the 3rd of June 2017. Now, there are going to be a few spoilers in this, possibly. I'm not talking about the movie from start to finish and dropping spoilers for the sake of it, but there might be some. So there's a pre-warning anyway. So, first off, what did I think of this movie? Well, I was quite pleasantly surprised by it. I wouldn't say it's a game changer in the slightest, but having said that, it's the first DC Cinematic Universe movie that I think got a pretty good balance. Personally, I preferred Man of Steel. I wasn't a major fan of Man of Steel, but I thought it was quite good. Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad I can just totally live without now. But Wonder Woman seemed to be up there with Man of Steel, to be honest with me. And I think Man of Steel could have been a hell of a lot better. But I think the difference in this and Man of Steel to me is I prefer that film because some of the highs were very high in Man of Steel, but there are also a few lows as well, like the ending of the film just dragging on into a massive CGI fest. With Wonder Woman, I tended to find it was a nice kind of medium. Whereas, like I say, Man of Steel had some really good stuff, some really bad stuff. Wonder Woman just kind of nice balance. I don't really have anything really bad to say about this film. Maybe it was a little bit too long. 2 hours, 20 minutes is quite excessive. I will say, don't sit through the end credits. I didn't, but from what I understand, there's nothing there. I think we waited for a few minutes till the sort of mid credits ended. With some kind of like logos and stuff that kind of flash up while it's telling you who was in the film. But all that ends and then it just goes to kind of scrolling credits. There's nothing there, and from what I read online, there's nothing right at the end either. So they don't have to oblige us every time with these superhero movies. And to be honest, I think it's becoming a little bit less special than it used to be having post-credit scenes because once upon a time it was kind of a novelty, whereas now you feel obliged practically. Look at the uproar when there was nothing at the end of Avengers Age of Ultron. Well, not right at the end anyway. A lot of people kicked off about that, like spoiled kids. It's like, hello, it's you're not obliged to do that. Sometimes it's nice when they kind of leave it a while and not do one. So anyway, kind of going off on one there. So anything else really to say about this? What was Gal Gadot like in this film? Well, again, pleasantly surprised. There were a few bits in this film where she gave quite a good performance. In Batman v Superman, she had a few good moments, but a lot of it was to do with charisma and not the kind of charm that she has in just being a pretty face. That was her in like Fast and Furious. Like my co-review of The Core says, she was just basically in those films to lean up against cars looking pretty. That was basically all she brought to those films. Batman v Superman, there was a little bit more than that, I thought, and it kind of played to her strengths as a kind of physical presence. And again, I don't just mean a pretty face, but she kind of knew how to carry herself as well. You could kind of tell she'd been kind of trained in. It's kind of hard to describe, to be honest. But if you've seen Batman v Superman, you'll see what I mean. She was a bit wooden, but she had something about her, So, but in this film, there was even more, and so there should be because she's their main lead in this film. Really, Chris Pine did carry the film a hell of a lot. It has to be said, but I don't think that's nothing out of the ordinary when you've got a main lead that isn't like a huge name or like a really exceptional actor or somebody who's maybe absent some acting skills like Gal Gadot is, to be fair. That's why I'm kind of praising her, because I know her skills aren't really all that great, and she really kind of went the extra mile on this, I think, when I was watching anyway. She's kind of like Van Damme, to be honest, Jean-Claude Van Damme, who I'm a big fan of. If you look at a lot of I'm a fan of his earlier films anyway. A lot of those films, you'd have him as the main lead, but you'd have like quite a big actor or actress in there along with him, and they tended to carry a lot of the film in terms of the acting, because he wasn't a great actor. He was barely an actor at all. He was more a kind of physical presence and his kind of physical abilities as well, with all the martial arts and stuff that he could do. So it's similar to what you have here with Wonder Woman. You've got Chris Pine kind of carrying the film and a lot of the acting and stuff, but Wonder Woman does do quite a good job on her own anyway. Gal Gadot, the actress, does. So I can't criticize her too much for that because it's all in context. You know, she's not a massively trained actress. I've been saying that for years on here. I seem to remember it was late 2013 when she got announced as being Wonder Woman, and from the beginning I was always saying, you know, based on what we've seen so far, I'm concerned because she's not a brilliantly trained actress, and unless things improve, she's going to be wooden as hell. Well, she seems to have done quite a good job. I mean, she's no Jodie Foster, there's no denying that, but she holds the character. And again, at the end of the day, it's a Wonder Woman movie. It's kind of a silly kind of premise, dumb superhero movies, whatever. I love them, you know, it's one of my favourite genres, but at the end of the day, it's a dumb kind of thing. It's not the Shawshank Redemption. Like, I always go back to that, you know, don't compare these films to Schindler's List or whatever, because they are not that. They are what they are, and that's what we're reviewing. It's all in context. So I'm kind of getting pissed off now, because I can kind of see a lot of people saying, oh, she's terrible. In context, guys, she was pretty good, so... And she's getting better as well. I mean, this isn't a character that I'm a huge fan of either as well, so I didn't have any major kind of expectations. But, you know, I've read comics that she's been in as well, and as far as I'm concerned, they kept a lot of the core elements of the character there, and without getting into any major spoilers, it plays significantly into, you know, who she is, how she wins as well. That's the other thing. So really kind of pleasantly surprised. And as I say, in context with this DC cinematic universe, so this is the fourth film. We had Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, which introduced Wonder Woman. Then we had Suicide Squad, and now this one. This is probably my second favourite in that franchise of movies, because it's not really been that higher standard that's been set. I think Man of Steel was probably my favourite just because it's Superman, like I say, and I thought Henry Cavill was very good. But as far as I'm concerned, Man of Steel is probably my more favourite film. But Wonder Woman, the character and the performance, she's now my favourite DC Cinematic Universe character that I've seen so far, because the others just haven't been presented brilliantly. That's really unfortunate as well, because Ben Affleck is a great actor when he's on his A game, and he gave a good performance in Batman v Superman. But I just found the way that the character was depicted, not Ben Affleck's fault, the way the story kind of played, was depressing and just not in any way inspiring. And same with Superman. I mean, Henry Cavill was great, had some great moments, but overall, especially given the most recent outing that they had, it was just boring and depressing and just nothing. Whereas Wonder Woman, this character, I'd happily go see another movie with her in if the character's going to be depicted like that again. I want to see more of Batman and Superman, don't get me wrong, I'm looking forward to seeing more of them, but not if they're going to be depicted the same way they were in Batman v Superman. So kind of bizarre, really, as well. That I would say that in this cinematic universe of these four movies, that Wonder Woman happens to be my favourite character in all these, because otherwise she would be a very, you know, on the back row kind of when it comes to my favourite characters in DC movies. You know, I mean, you look at the great characters that we've got in this universe that we've seen so far, like the Joker and Batman and Harley Quinn and Deadshot and Superman, Lex Luthor. They've had some real classic characters, and they've all been a letdown as well, as far as I'm concerned. Which is, like I say, was a real shame. So I recommend you go see this film. I could live without it, to be fair. I would put this on a par with, if we're going to compare it to Marvel, and when I say Marvel, I don't mean the X-Men, I mean the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'd put this on a par with the Edward Norton Incredible Hulk, which I think is a good film, but I think that and Thor: The Dark World are the weakest of the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. And they're still pretty good films, because it's a very good franchise, is that. But I would say that the highest of DC's Cinematic Universe is pretty much on a par with Marvel at its lowest. And that is in no way bashing, because I'm more a fan of DC characters originally. It's, I mean, you know, I've got Batman in the background there. You know, it's like it's ingrained into my into my childhood and my you know, my background when I was growing up. It was all about DC characters. I don't have a bias against them, but it's just the Marvel films have just been more enjoyable, more cohesive, and unlike my reviews, and just more inspiring, really, and fun. That's what I go to see superhero movies for. Like I say, these films are not masterpieces in the sense of like The Shawshank Redemption or Forrest Gump or whatever. You know, they just are what they are. They're more than just popcorn movies as well. They're kind of something that you can get excited about and you want to see the next installment. And it's great that they kind of mix them up as well. Like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's got a lot of different genres to it. DC, although they've had a bit of variety in the films and some of the tones of the films, they've all been a letdown. That's just my opinion. Well, it's not just my opinion. A lot of people feel the same way as well. And it's a real shame, like I say. So, what else can I say about this film? It's, let's say, the main thing that I can say in the negative is just that the film is a little bit too long. 2 hours, 20 minutes. It could have been a little shorter, but to me that wasn't a major problem. So if that's the only thing I can really say negative about this film, then, you know, hats off to them. It's quite interesting. Finally, let's just kind of close this just by saying the context of this in terms of female lead superhero movies and also a female directed movie. Patty Jenkins directed this movie, and you don't really get a lot of female movie directors in big films. So all identity politics stuff aside, because I mean I hate all that anyway. It's really great to see a good film that's been directed by a woman about an iconic female superhero character, and that movie has been good and, from what I have seen so far, quite successful as well, because female lead superhero movies have a really rotten track record, and from what I understand we haven't had a significant one since Elektra in 2005, I believe. That was a god-awful movie. There was Catwoman as well, which came out maybe a year or two before that with Halle Berry. I haven't seen that one, but from what I understand, it's probably better off if I don't. There's also Supergirl, which came out in '83 with Helen Slater. The only reason I kind of would watch that film now would be out of nostalgia. But again, it was a pretty bad film, even in context of the Superman films around that time, which it was canon with, weren't very good. The first two were great, Richard Donner's films, but the Superman 3 and 4 were pretty bad. And that was kind of when Supergirl came out, so it was kind of mixed in with that, suffered from some of the same issues. But, so yeah, female lead superhero movies have not been very good, so for this film to come out and do that now, I think is quite important, to be honest, because, you know, I wasn't blind when I went to see this movie. There were little girls going to see this. You generally don't get little girls going to see superhero movies to the same degree as I noticed when I saw this. And I think that was quite good because she was quite an inspiring character, to be honest, as well, for girls, because she wasn't kind of sexed up. I mean, she was, you know, God, I mean, she's beautiful, but she wasn't a kind of like, oh, look at me, loads of men want to sleep with me and it's my power to say no to them kind of thing, or anything like that. It was just more being a human being, you know, that was what the character was about. And obviously she was a woman, and there was a lot of elements to the, you know, being a woman during the kind of first part of the 20th century. There were a lot of mentions about issues there as well, and some of it was played for laughs as well, like genuinely funny as well. But it wasn't the kind of crap that you get nowadays with gender identity politics, with scumbags like Amy Schumer, and films like the Ghostbusters movie, which I defended in a lot of ways when I reviewed it. I mean, go see my review, but it had a man-hating, bitter, spiteful agenda to it, it has to be said. There's not really any of that in this, and there could so easily have been as well. So I'm glad that they kept it real. Bizarre. Superhero movie, and I'm saying that they kept it real. But I'm glad that they didn't go down that road, because that would have just been disastrous, absolutely disastrous. Not just with me, but I mean, people have got no tolerance for this kind of thing. Gender baiting, you know. I mean, some people do. Some people really like that, but most people just don't, and are just massively turned off by it because it's unnecessary. You know, that's not what this film is about. That's not what the character is about. You know, like I say, she's a human being. Well, she's not. Well, technically, she's not a human being, but she's a metahuman. But she's got the core elements of what it is to be a human being, to have compassion and to be empathetic. And she is to the extreme as well. Like I said, going back to what I was saying about a lot of girls were going to see this, it's great to see a character depicted like that isn't, you know, because I mean, I grew up when girls at school were inspired by Julia Roberts in Pretty Woman, for God's sake, and they thought that was a really inspiring character. Oh, seriously, I'm not even kidding. Which we've got to explain a lot about the girls that I went to school with as well. But no, it's good to see seeds being kind of planted there with films like this, for not just for girls because girls need it, but same for guys as well. You know, we don't want a load of like scumbags and douchebags putting messages into minds of young men as well. I'm being very philosophical now. I'm sorry about this, but this is all a positive in terms of the movie, and it wasn't. Like I say, it wasn't hugely inspiring, this film, in that sense, but, you know, things settle in kids' minds, and superhero movies, I suppose, are quite inspiring to kids. They were to me when I was a kid. I mean, look, I've got Tim Burton's Batman on my shelf behind me as well, so I guess that left an impression with me at a young age. So I'm really rambling now anyway, so I hope that you still follow me at this point. If you're not, click dislike. I will not... I will understand. So, right, I'm going to leave it there because it's just going to get worse. So, I recommend the film anyway, and as far as the DC Cinematic Universe goes, I'm hoping that this is a turning point for them, because they need to really undo some damage that was done. I mean, the DC Cinematic Universe was already behind, and I said before Batman v Superman came out, I said, you know, they've got some catching up to do in terms of just the number of movies, the kind of credibility that DC's got in terms of putting films out. But if Batman v Superman's good, that if it knocks it out of the park, that one film could put DC on a par with Marvel in terms of credibility. Well, they didn't do that. They went in the opposite direction, to the point where even I was kind of saying, look, I'm not even going to go see Wonder Woman when it comes out, because the last at least two films have been a massive letdown. Man of Steel was divisive. I kind of enjoyed it, but could have been better. I said I'm just going to sack Wonder Woman off, but I kind of wanted to watch it. It looked like it could be alright. And then the positive reviews came out, so I was like, I'm going to trust them. I'll go see this movie. And lo and behold, it has been what the reviewers have been saying. It's been quite good. So hopefully, like I said, this is a turning point for DC, and Justice League follows suit. Fingers crossed. Zack Snyder's directed it. I feel really bad because he's had some really shitty times recently, as I'm sure you're aware. But we'll see how that film comes out in November time. I feel kind of gullible, because not only am I going to go see that film after the letdown of Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad, I've actually booked the day off work for this. So seriously, it better be worth it, because I'm going to feel like such a mug if I go see this movie taking the day off work and it's bad, because it's practically an abusive relationship at that point, and I'm going back for more. So we'll see anyway. November is 5 months away from here, so we'll do a review of that as and when. And for now, we'll leave there and say Brand X Reviews is the channel. You can also check out Brand X Talk, which is another channel that I have where I just kind of talk about random things sometimes, very random. You can check us out on Facebook, and there is an Instagram page, rarely gets updated. There's a Twitter page, which very rarely gets updated. And the website, brandxreviews.com, now no longer exists. So don't go there, because it's probably been picked up by some spamming page, if that hasn't already happened. So for now, we'll leave there and say thank you very much for watching.